Across every sport, there will be peaks and valleys. Whether this is with a team performance, like how dominating the 2015 to 2016 Golden State Warriors was sort of a peak for how good a team could be in the NBA, or how Tom Brady is the NFL's peak for how good a player's resume can look, or, how the 90 to 94 Bills team showed us truly how much pain one team could bring to their franchise. Many of these little peaks exist, and some will be overcome, others won't be. The peak that I want to talk about today, though, is how the 21 to 22 NCAA football season was the best year for overall punting in the history of this great sport. And it's not just a peak like, barely edging out another year's peak, but this is like setting a Mount Everest level record next to the speed bump level records of the past. So there are a lot of characters in this game, and if you want to make the claim that it was the best overall year of punting, you need to know the main cast. You had first Matt Ariza, colloquially known as the punt god, Michael Turk, who's taking on his first year at OU, Ryan Stonehouse coming out of Colorado State, Kyle Ostendorf from Arizona, and Ryan Rico from BYU. You also had, okay, never mind, there's a lot of guys in this, but that's exactly the point. There was just stupid amounts of talent that all had some of the best years of their career this year. Talent that we have never seen take the field all at one time before. Now, before I dive into the meat and potatoes of what happened, I think we should take a look at the pretty obvious reason of why this is about to happen. You see, the year prior, there's been this little thing called COVID. You might have heard of it. And every conference treated COVID a little differently, but one thing most conferences did is grant their players one more year to play that they usually wouldn't get. With this, we saw a lot of high-performing players come back to take one more year, such as Turk, Ariza, Stonehouse, heck, even Ryan Wright, who was in this class. But even if you told me this extra year would give the class a boost, I still don't think anybody could have predicted what was about to happen. So to start, we'll look at the best historic punting averages of all time from before this class, just so that way you can see what I'm trying to paint. Before this year, the record would have been set in 2018 when Texas A&M standout punter Braden Mann put up a massive 51-yard average. This was completely unprecedented at the time, as the best average before that would be Tom Malone's 49-yard average from 2003. But you see, 2018 was also a pretty good year, with Ryan Stonehouse and now USFL Brandon Wright putting up a 48.3 and 48.2 yard average respectively. From there, we'd see a trickling of punters that had standout seasons from a variety of years with real no rhyme or reason, just guys balling out. Flash forward to after the 21 season, and the record books have been completely demolished. Matt Ariza now took the #1 spot with an insane 51.2 yard average in a season nobody expected to happen so soon after 2018. After all, the best average in recorded history was Sammy Baugh's 51.4, and to think someone in college was flirting with that average would be insane. But one stellar average may not be. And holy shit, Michael Turk also had a 51.2 yard average? That means not only was the record book broken in historic fashion, but it was broken twice in the same year. And it was almost 3 times, with Ryan Stonehouse bringing in a dangerously close 50.9 yard average. But these weren't the only 3 who put up insane averages. Heck, 4 of the top 5 historic best averages of all time came from the 2021 class, with Kyle Ostendorf putting up a massive 49.2 yard average, which outside of the year 2018 would have typically been the best average in any given year. But on this one faithful year, he wasn't even top 3. In fact, looking at the historic 10 best averages of all time, 7 of them are from the 2021 season, with all the previous mentioned, but now throw in BYU's very own Ryan Rico with a 48.6, then Race Porter with a 48.5, and top it off with household name Bryce Barringer with a 48.5 as well. These numbers are baffling. That means that outside of, once again, 2018 and 2003 seasons, any one of these punters, if they had this kind of year, would have been deemed the best punter in their class, hands down, bar none. I mean, when we look at the awards given to the best punter, the guy with the best average is always a finalist, meaning that the top 10 punters from this class, who the number 10 was Vikings standout star punter this year, Ryan Wright, would have been a top 1 to 2 contender in any other year. And so far, we're just scratching the surface of the talent in this class, because while gross average is one thing, the big punt scene in this class is like nothing seen before in a single year. I'm talking about 8 punts in a single year of 80 or more yards. Like, do you know how stupid that is? You would have to combine the last 5 years of NCAA punting to match that number, and the last 17 years of NFL punting to get that historic number. These long balls also introduced a couple of new faces, like how William Pristup came in when the Cornhuskers were struggling to find some consistency and dropped an 84-yarder on his lone punt against Northwestern. But big punts weren't exclusive to just the punters this year, because Buffalo's quarterback, yes, quarterback, Kyle Van Treese would also send off an 80-yard lefty boot completely out of nowhere. Also, amidst the Longhorns' struggle to find consistent punting, they let their kicker take over their duties. Their kicker, of course, being Cameron Dicker, the kicker. And of course, he would come in and hit a 78-yard punt against Oklahoma, where Turk would come back around and hit his own very 85-yard punt. And don't even get me started on Matt Araiza, who put up 2 80-yard punts of his own in one season, not to mention his plethora of 70 and 60 yarders, which was also breaking records, and how he got his name, the Punt God. But the good punting was not just limited to the big balls. Of this class, we also may have seen some of the best, the deepest professional talent as well. As you know, for the first time in NFL history, 4 punters were taken in the draft. This, of course, was Jordan Stout, who didn't get mentioned much, but he was completely holding down the best hang time average that year, and in the rough weather conditions of Pennsylvania, no less. Being taken in the 4th by the Ravens, with another less talked about man in this video of Jake Camarda going right after to the Buccaneers. This coming after years of punters being taken in the 5th through 7th would have been a great talking point. But then Matt Araiza gets taken in the 6th by the Bills, and we had tied the most punters ever taken, and at this point it was looking doubtful for anyone else to get picked up. But then, out of nowhere, the Bears pick up Trenton Gill. Needless to say, this was unprecedented. There even was a kicker that had been drafted in Cade York, but that's aside the point. But that takes us all the way to free agency, where the punting craze continues, because multiple punters were getting picked up left and right, including Ryan Stonehouse, who had been signed to compete with former All-Pro Brett Kern, Ryan Wright to compete with Jordan Berry, Jake Julian was brought into the Patriots to compete with Jake Bailey, and Seth Vernon was brought in to compete with former Buccaneers punter Bradley Pinion, and Daniel Whelan, last but not least, had to compete against star rookie Blake Gillikin. And what stands out amongst this is that, yes, teams usually will bring in punters every year just for camp legs and to help compete, but I think all of these punters, save maybe the Patriots and the Saints, had legitimate shots at winning their starting spots. And the only reason I don't include the Patriots and Saints is that both of their punters were coming off really strong seasons and were still on rookie contracts. Heck, Ryan Stonehouse would go on to beat All-Pro Brett Kern, and so would Ryan Wright beat his guy, meaning that a whopping 6 punters from this class started in the NFL Week 1. Now, obviously we know Matt Araiza's situation didn't allow him to make it that far, but with more avenues to pro punters than we've ever seen before, this isn't the last we'd see a lot of these faces. With the XFL draft happening this same year, we also saw a lot of those punters get picked up there, with Daniel Whelan, an FCS dark horse punter, being taken first overall for all the specialists over a lot of big name schools, and even over Marquette King, an NFL GOAT. We'd also see the reemergence of Race Porter as he'd take on the XFL ranks as well. Oh yeah, and don't forget the CFL also got a hold of some of this class's insanely deep talent pool, with some names you haven't even heard yet, like Blake Hayes, former Illini punter, playing for the Ticats, and John Haggerty, the Conference USA star, playing for the Toronto Argonauts. Now, this isn't a stat that's kept anywhere so I can verify this, but that means 10 total punters from this class played professional football in some form or fashion at the next level, with at least 2 in Seth Vernon and Jake Julian continually getting looks in tryouts. On top of that, the record book has now been absolutely dominated by the 2021 class, with 70% of the top 10 averages of all time, including the number 1 and number 2, coming from this class. This is why this year of punters will go down as the greatest year of all time.